Hey friends, welcome to my place. This is where I live, and I think this is where I work now, maybe. We're going to call this podcast episode, piece of talk, we're going to call it Fighting is About Fighting. I'm going to do a bunch of different things over the next days and weeks. You probably know who I am if you're watching Robin Black's YouTube channel. I'm Robin Black. I have dedicated my life to the study of the martial arts. And I'm very proud to say that. That is what I love to do. And studying fighting has been the greatest joy of my life. The last decade of my life has been the greatest time that I've had. And I think we're going to start something new today. So that's exciting. I'll weave a bit of a tale for you here, tell you why we're here and what we're doing. We're going to spend time here. I'm going to bring in David Mullins. I'm going to bring in John Ramdeen. I'm going to do stuff on my own. I'm going to call people. And we're going to do a bunch of different kind of... I don't know where to put my hands, by the way. This is a brand new table. These are my records. This is my Joe Rogan mug. And I've never sat here before. So it's all new. All of this is new. I'm a white belt again. And I think that's the most exciting part. I thought I was going to be somber talking today, but I'm actually super energized. Like I feel pretty excited and nervous. And I haven't felt nervous talking about fighting and things related to the martial arts for a long time. And I think that's a great thing. So I'll weave a bit of a tale. I'll tell you the last couple of weeks, and then I'll try to figure out what we're doing here since this is the first one. And, as I mentioned, I have spent the last number of years talking about fighting, about 8. And I've studied the martial arts, I've dedicated my life to it, and I've kind of modeled my way of thinking after the way that fighters train and fight and strive and learn and fail and succeed. And the study of fighting often at first ends up being just kind of comparing and contrasting fighters. This guy's a better striker. This guy's a better grappler. I think this guy's got better takedown. That's how you start. That's often how you begin to look at and obsess over fighting. Maybe you train yourself, a little jiu-jitsu, a little boxing. But over time, as you look deeper into the martial arts, there's so many things. They inform your life and they shape the way that you think. You linger over technique for a long time. And that's where I fell in love with doing fight breakdowns, something that Mark, who's behind the camera, my friend, and I want to get back to. And it'll take some time to get into a studio environment, to get in front of a camera or a screen and have an editor that can do it. We're going to do that, though. We're white belts today, but we're going to be black belts, and it's not going to take that long. So you fall in love with technique, and that brought me to building these fight breakdowns that I've done maybe 150 or 200 of, and I love doing it. I love the study and the search and the little digging for nuggets and truths and, following your curiosity and discovering these really wild and interesting things which bring you new questions and you study them further. And I get to show the beauty of fighting. That's something really important to me, the art of fighting. And I get to really, really point people to particular fighters, Cub Swanson, Jorge Masvidal, these Demetrius Johnson, just these ones that are just a little more special than the others, and show you why, and I love that. So fighting takes you to the study of technique, and you fall in love with it, with this low kick. What happens when you low kick? What happens when you check? What's the distribution of weight? How do you play with range and timing and all of these things? It becomes about technique, and it is beautiful, and we'll always be interested in that. And I'm sorry I'm not talking about fights in particular today, but we'll do a lot of that over the coming weeks. Today, I just want to tell you some stories. And this is maybe what this particular podcast or particular whatever you want to call it is. Fighting is about fighting. I'm going to tell you what we're trying to do here. So technique, will always be interested in that, and we're going to do preview shows here, previewing the fights that are coming up. We're going to do post shows where we go back and analyze the fights, and we'll work our way back to being able to use the footage and do my breakdowns. They're the greatest joy in my life to build, and I really miss them already. So then the study of fighting starts to become and with at least the way it has been for me, and I know I'm not alone, because when you see traditional martial artists for many years and you see the stories that they tell, eventually fighting and the study of fighting and the study of martial arts becomes about the study of yourself. How do you change yourself? How do you improve things? How do you improve the ability to improve your abilities? How do you get better at getting better? Not just get better at throwing a punch, but get better at getting better. What are your philosophies on life and study and learning and failing? And so I started to do a podcast called Ask Robin Black, and I'm going to bring that back as soon as possible. Maybe we'll do one tomorrow. If not, we'll definitely do one Sunday. Are you around Sunday?
Yeah.
Mark's around Sunday. Mark Manoharan? Manoharan. Mark reached out to me, and I got a lot of people reaching out to me. I'll tell you a little story about that in a bit. But I liked Mark right away. He thought the way his brother's a long-time martial artist, and he thought in terms of, I can do this, I'll only be this good at it, but we'll get good at it quickly. And that's a whole lot better than when people tell you they can do all kinds of stuff. It's good to underpromise and overdeliver. And Mark's already doing that. And it's been cool, making new friends too. But so you start to study philosophy and the study of yourself and improvement and all those kinds of things, striving for things and how to do that. And Ask Robin Black was a podcast that I started that was primarily ask me a question and I'll answer it. What do you think about the matchup between Cub Swanson and Doo Ho Choi? Was it the best fight ever? It was the best fight ever, by the way. And just asked and answered. But there was something about that setting and the time where I was along the path of trying to learn martial arts and learn what you can glean from it. I started talking a lot about philosophy and the philosophy of life and the philosophy of growth and about self-improvement and about starting where you start and not being afraid to set big goals and understand there are small goals in between. And white belts become blue belts with lots of work, and blue belts become purple belts with lots of work, and all of these aspects of your life. That's what that podcast became about. And we're going to keep talking about that. So recently, for 8 years, I worked for Fight Network, a great company, a really cool family. And over time, we made better and better stuff. They gave us the freedom, Ramdeen and myself and Pollock and others, to be able to do what we did. Glenn McDonald and Bobby Torrance in particular said, do what you do. And they allowed me to just go down this path of study and sharing. And it was beautiful. And so about a week ago today, I got a call, but the Thursday before that, I was in Las Vegas. We were doing the best work that we had ever done. We had doubled and redoubled our audience who seemed to connect to what we were doing. And we know it's different because we know our perspective is different. We had or hopefully have, thank you for hanging, by the way, this wonderful audience that had a lot of the same curiosities as us. So we're in Las Vegas. I was nominated for Analyst of the Year, which was this incredible and real honor. Like not even that kind of bullshit where people just say, oh, bro, it's just like, it was really meant a lot to me. With Brian Stan, Dominic Cruz, Dan Hardy, and Chael. And think of that. I'm upper Canadian cable. You know, those guys are ESPN, Fox, and the UFC. You have Cruz, one of the greatest champions ever. Dan, who fought for a UFC title. Brian is a war hero. I mean, that might be an exaggeration, but if you know Brian, he's at least that. And then Chael fought for a UFC title. And some dude who used to sing in a rock band at Upper Cable. So I'm there and I'm wearing this beautiful red jacket. And I mean beautiful. It's the company David August made it for me. It is something. And I did not win. Dom won, which well deserved, right? But it was really wild to be grouped in with those guys. And they asked me to present an award. And so I go up and they say, day of. You don't hear much from them until then they send you a few lines. You're supposed to read off a prompter. And day of, I'm presenting to leading man of the year, meaning the bosses. And lo and behold, it's a wonderful time backstage. And Brian and John Anik, who's just a real good friend and a real good guy, and all these cool people. And talking to Mike Brown, who's one of my very favorite fighters, and talking to Dean Thomas and Michael Venom Page and Bisping and Eddie Bravo, and just hanging out there, feeling like so appreciated for this work that you had done. And so I open the thing, and it's Dana White. And I present Dana, my guy, with an award. Big hug, Dana White. Go out. We have a party that night. We do Saturday night. I go and I work for the UFC, and I sit there with John Dodson, former title challenger, and Yves Edwards, who is the coolest guy in the universe. Like the coolest guy. I think he had maybe 50 wins, hyper intelligent and funny, and we did this TV show for the UFC called UFC Sidekick, and we might do a couple more of those. I think that's been talked about anyways. I do freelance stuff for the UFC, and they've been really good to me. So we do that, and it's super fun. Then Sunday, we go to Vince Neil's restaurant, and they give us Vince Neil's private room where we shoot some of the best content we've ever done in our life. Monday, I get on a plane to go visit my wife, who I haven't seen in 5 weeks, who's on tour with a musical. And Tuesday morning, my phone is going off, and it's Ramdeen, and he's like, I got fired. It's 8 a.m. I'm like, oh my God, I wonder what happened. And like 8:10, it's Bobby, the senior producer. Dude, I got fired. It's been so great working with you. And I say out loud to Erica, like a lot of people are getting fired at Fight Network. And I track down the boss, and I send him a text. Hey, am I all right? And he says, call me. I think we know what that means. So the long and the short of it is, over the telephone about 10 a.m., day 2 of visiting my wife for the first time in 5 weeks, 3 days after some of the greatest experiences of my life being celebrated, they've shut down Fight Network as a production house. They don't produce. If they're going to produce content, it's going to be 5 or 10% of what they used to do. So all the major producers, Rammer, myself, 3 editors, great guys, George Huffman, Paul Shaughnessy, Derek, Matt Locke, that's 4 others. So like a dozen people got laid off in that building, and they just said, we don't make fight content anymore. So I started shaking for 2 days. I shook, I didn't eat. And I wasn't worried about my job or making money. It just freaked me out. Like every Sunday, I get up. I was working 7 days a week, and probably most nights. And I would get up and I go in, and I had these 8 pieces of content to do that day. And they call it content, but really what it is being able to do that thing you love. Right? And then I'd make these breakdowns, and they're very complicated. You need multiple people because people have to cut stuff and gather stuff and shoot and camera and edit. And you know, Mark and I are going to be a while till we can do that. And so like, you know, how am I going to talk about fighting? Where am I going to talk about fighting? I was freaked out. And my wife was so good. And she was like, don't worry, we'll be okay for money and stuff. And money didn't even cross my mind. What crossed my mind is I was put on earth to do this. This is all I know. This is what I think about constantly every minute. And I didn't know what to do. And so suddenly hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of you start reaching out and telling me how much you appreciate my work and how crazy Fight Network is. And the last thought on them, they're a business, and our department costs $450,000 a year. And if the metrics aren't adding up through whether somebody doesn't know how to sell it right or the math, the way things change now, the fact that you all love it doesn't pay whatever they're needing. However they had to do that, that was someone's job. That wasn't Ramdeen and my job. Our job was to make the best stuff humanly possible, and we know we did that. But somebody somewhere in the machine of it, the machine doesn't care about passion and humans and love and this visceral connection to fighting. The machine cares about the paperwork and how it works. So that was that. And I had a conversation with the owner, and he's a good man, and it killed those guys. There's a lot of sadness in there, as Ramdeen's been there for 11 years. I've been there for 8.5, and I know we're the backbone of it, not just with what we made, but the way that we worked with everybody and the way that we made everyone feel, you know, as we worked together, you know. But you got to move on, and I'm going to get back for a second to that philosophical thinking. We talk about if you're mounted, you don't panic that, oh my God, I used to be in half guard and now I'm mounted. Oh, I used to have the guard and then I was in half guard and now I'm mounted. among these philosophies is, I'm in mount. I've been mounted before. I know how to work from mount. I know how to train from here. All I have to do is progress from here. It doesn't matter where I was. It doesn't matter we used to be on the feet and then we were on the fence. I'm mounted. My job is to fight back to half guard and then to fight back to guard and then to the feet or whatever I want. That's the truth. Momentum doesn't have to affect you. It's not real. So there's one philosophy. Other ones are, just because you don't know how to do something, just start doing it. Like these lights I got today, and they're not very good. And we just set this room up like this. And Mark, we've been talking for 2 or 3 days, and he literally has filmed 2 or 3 things before. He's a good sound producer, so if you're listening to this on SoundCloud. Yeah, we'll get on iTunes by a couple of days from now. Then you're probably going to hear some sweet sounds. But how this looks, we don't even know. But you know what? That's okay. And I realize that I'm a case study right now for these philosophies and these beliefs that I have. I am my own guinea pig. I say you can accomplish anything you want in your life. I tell people that if they just set goals properly, a long-term, a mid-term, a short-term process goals, if you invest in failure and learn to fail and come back from it, all of these things that I have read, believed, and shared, I fucking get to do right now. We get to do it. Mark and myself and whatever our team is. My children one day, I want them to see that we started in the little half den that I have in my 2-bedroom apartment in Toronto. And a few months later, we had better equipment. And a few months later, we were live. And sometime after that, we had our own studio with my TV was back, with my editor, breaking that thing down. And we're going to go from white belt to blue belt to purple belt. There's going to be huge failures. And that's what this is about. Okay, so please follow us about pre-shows, UFC pre-shows. We're going to analyze the shit out of what's coming up, and we're going to do it with the same passion and the same commitment to quality that we always have. Me, Ramdean, Mullins, whoever else we bring in. We're going to break down things post-show. I'm going to find the nuggets and the beauty in it. We're going to talk about all of those things. Those will be in different podcasts. I'm going to do Ask Robin Black. I'm going to do it right here on this YouTube channel. But every now and again, we're going to check in with one of these. This is called Fighting is About Fighting. And this one, Fighting is About Fighting, means that fighting is about anything. Whatever you learn from fighting is applicable to whatever you're fighting. You're fighting uphill in something. In this case, you're starting a business. You're fighting to learn something. You're fighting to strive for something. That's what we're doing here. That's why I wanted to do this one first, because this is just going to be just bringing you along on the trip, just documenting the trip from our little podcast here. This is 7 days to the day after they shut down production. And here we are. Practicing what we preach. We're practicing what we preach. We're sitting in here. We're our own case study, and we're going to build this thing up. And if that doesn't interest you, I hope you do come along for all of our analysis and stuff. But we're going to document where we go from right here. We're white belts, brand new, day one. They're trying to show us a Kimura, and we can't even figure it out. And we're going to build this, and we're going to document it. And I'm going to show my kids one day. And Mark's going to show his kids and whoever else we bring in. And you guys are going to come with us. And I thank you all. I mean, I had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of you reach out to me. And it really does mean a lot to me for real. And guys like Stan and Chael, John Anik, Mindenhall, Thomas, and I mean, and Steffi. Thank you, Steffi Crooklyn. And hundreds of you. People at the UFC came and said, we're going to keep giving you these and your future's with us. And I thank them because one day, another goal, I'm going to commentate the UFC. I'm going to. And then Stéphane Patry, that's the first day I put out that this had changed. Stéphane Patry from TKO called me and said, no matter what, you're a commentator. ACB from Russia called me to offer me a gig commentating and analyzing. Monster Gym or Monster Zim, if you look it up, Monster ZYM from Korea. Came and offered me some work going and interviewing some fighters. We're going to build up to other things from that. My first one's going to be Cub Swanson, and they asked for him. He's my favorite. It happens to be so, but they asked for Cub specifically. And then now the guys from Big Knockout Boxing have reached out to me, and I thank them for reaching out to me. And there's more. And so we're going to be a freelancer for a while. but I'm going to check in. And I'm going to bring you guys on this trip, and we're going to document it together. If you want to support us, I'm going to walk over there, and I'm going to click go live on my Patreon. I don't even know what that is, really, but I think you can help me. I want to thank my man, Mike Fife in Winnipeg, who has financed our website and some of our production. Thanks, Mike. And I want to thank you guys. And please send me some messages and include the hashtag Fighting is About Fighting. I will always follow you if you include that hashtag. And it means a lot to me for all of you guys supporting us, whether you send us some $5 on Patreon or you're sending me those emails saying that you are behind us. It really meant a lot to me. My friend Tracy Trudeau said, make sure you don't just think of those as platitudes. These are real human beings that really care. And that helped me a lot. It really did. And when I thought of, these are not just, wow, hundreds of people clicked a button. These are hundreds of people who you've been able to reach out to and have some influence and some effect on. And that's something very, very special. So that's that. Fighting is about fighting. We're going to be a black belt one day, and we're bringing you with us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all your support. It really, really means a lot to me. And watch for some stuff with Ramdeen and Mullins and Ask Robin Black and a bunch of stuff. We're not stopping. We're going to go hard. All right. Black out.